me, what happened was from the very beginning, I suffered from dark days. From 0 to 5, my father was both physically and mentally abusive towards me. He was a Vietnam vet who was suffering from PTSD, and he was very, very angry, and he took that out on us. Then my mother and father got divorced when I was 5 years old, and my mother married my stepfather. And my stepfather repeatedly raped me and was mentally abusive towards me from ages 5 to 9. The only thing that hadn't been poked, prodded, or touched in any way was my brain. And early on, my teachers told me, listen, Charmaine, you're smart, go for that. But the kids in school were cruel and bullying me. In the wintertime, they would throw me in the snow. In the fall, they would throw me in the leaves. And I kept saying, God, please let this pay off. And it did. In my senior year, I was my senior class president, homecoming queen, yearbook editor, public announcer, and also graduated number 3 in my class, which was good enough to get me into Cornell University. At Cornell, I worked 2 to 3 jobs, and I was very active in student life. One of the things I wanted to do while at Cornell was pledge a Black sorority, and I did. I pledged Delta Sigma Theta, but this was a time when they changed the pledge process to no pledging activities. However, for 13 weeks, me and 12 other girls went through a pledge process. Nationals heard about it. They came in, suspended and fined the girls. They suspended and fined the chapter, and me and the 12 girls that I pledged with, we did not get our letters. To have pledged for 13 weeks, long, hard weeks, and not get my letters, I felt suicidal. But I didn't act on it. I continued to do well, and I was actually inducted into the Quill and Dagger Senior Honor Society. I graduated on time with honors. However, my family on my father's side noticed that I was very depressed. They were like, oh girl, all you need is a man. A man will cheer you up and make you feel better. So you just need to go out on a date. So they set me up on a blind date with a friend of the family who asked me to marry him 4 months after dating me. We got married a year and a half later. And I would say that that relationship wasn't the greatest. He was always treating me like I was nothing, and I felt like I was nothing. So it was November 1997. I hadn't slept for 3 days, trying to figure out ways to get out that relationship. I started walking fast and talking fast and having speeding irrational thoughts like, I'm Wonder Woman and I can change the world. I went on my job where I was the head of human resources, and I called a meeting of all the secretaries, and I said, look, you're all incompetent and you're fired. They looked at me like, what? Then I went to Columbia where I was working on my master's in organizational psychology. I went to a class and I told my teacher, sit down, shut up. I'm smarter than you and I'm running the class today. He took one look at me. He said, something is wrong with you. He called my husband, and my husband and family took me to the psych ward, where I stayed for 2 weeks, and I was diagnosed with having bipolar disorder. When I came out, my hands were shaking, I was drooling, I was staring into space, I couldn't color coordinate, everyday activities was difficult, even sex was difficult. So being diagnosed bipolar disorder and then being hospitalized another 10 times after that is what happened to me. And my question for you is, would you like to share what happened with you? Or do you have a question for Zach or myself about our experience? What helps is in terms of acceptance, treatment, and coping. In terms of acceptance, in 1997, when I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, you couldn't get me to believe that I had a mental illness. I thought, given my history of abuse and trauma, that I had a meltdown or a nervous breakdown. So for the first 5 years of the diagnosis, I would argue with the doctors. You got it wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. No, I don't have bipolar. And then in 5 years, I stopped taking my medicine. And I immediately ended up in a psych ward again. for a month. And my mother came to see me, and she was like, look, I have diabetes. It's a medical condition just like any other. I take my medicine, I am well. You have bipolar disorder. It's a medical condition just like diabetes. You take your medicine, you'll be fine. Your family and friends love you for who you are. Hearing that bipolar disorder was a medical condition just like diabetes, I came to accept it. I came to further acceptance when I learned about famous people who have bipolar, like DMX, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Nina Simone, Beethoven, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Demi Lovato, Chris Brown, Kanye West, and Carrie Fisher. And because depression is part of bipolar, hearing that Janet Jackson, Alicia Keys, Dolly Parton, and Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, have depression. So I'm like, I'm in good company then. So acceptance came very, very easy for me then. And helped me deal with my treatment. It took 15 years for them to get my medicine correct. So during that time, I suffered from severe side effects, including my heart stopping 4 times. I had severe seizures. I went up to 215 pounds, down to 100 pounds, back up to 215. But finally, they got my medicine correct. And that consists of me taking an antipsychotic, anti-anxiety, and antidepressant. I see my psychiatrist once every 2 months, and I see my therapist twice a month. And I check in every single day with my family and friends. And there's a saying that goes, it takes a village to raise one child. Well, I believe sometimes it takes a village to raise one adult who has mental illness. And hello, that is what works for me. Also, I try to make treatment fun for me. So when I have to take my medication, I get out a special shot glass and some water and some juice, and I'll go, this is me loving and liking me. And if I have to take my medicine and I'm on the road, I have this cute Coach pill box. And people ask me all the time, they're like, what is it? I'm like, it's my medicine. And if you have to take medicine, you can get one too. So by making medicine time fun for me, I make my treatment work. And coping is what I do to stay well. And the first coping strategy that I learned to survive was to learn to love and like me, and to accept myself, and to practice self-care and self-love. Because after all the abuse and trauma that I had been through, I had low self-esteem. But by intentionally learning to love and like me, I got over low self-esteem, and I started to love and like myself and take care of myself. So now I see positive affirmations, like God is in control. He didn't make a mistake when he made me, and everything is going to be fine. The second coping strategy I practice is forgiveness. I've forgiven everyone who's done something wrong or negative towards me. And by doing so, I feel at peace and I'm able to cope. I also exercise and eat healthy. Remember I told you I went up to 215 pounds, right? Well, by eating healthy and exercising, I have lost and kept off for the last 7 years, 80 pounds, something I'm very proud of. I also practice keeping the kid in me alive. I'm a child of the 70s. I'm 49 years old. So I told you earlier, I had the Snoopy snow cone machine. I had the little people schoolhouse with the little people. I had my Cabbage Patch doll. And I have like 250 African-American Barbie dolls. I have a room full of toys. So anytime I feel upset, I go and play in my room full of toys, and then I feel happy again. I also practice acupuncture. It helps with the arthritis in my knees, the carpal tunnel in my hands, and the bipolar in my head. It relieves all of those conditions for me. And I also practice spirituality. I read my Bible every day, and I pray every day. And by doing so, I feel connected to God and able to cope. And my question for you is, what do you do to help you stay safe? In terms of success, hopes, and dreams. In 1997, I started my master's in organizational psychology. And then in 97, I also became diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Well, 2 years later, I completed my master's in organizational psychology from Columbia University with honors, and I'm very happy about that. I continue to work as a head of human resources for Fortune 50 and nonprofit organizations. Then in 2007, I started full-time my own business called Unlimited Help Incorporated as a Christian consulting firm. In 2007, I also became a published author, and I wrote my first book, Zero Mathematics, The Science of Today. Then I went on and wrote other books. My book, Size 7.5, Walk a Mile in My Shoes, is my autobiography. It talks about my time from 0 to 35. Then I wrote the sequel called Heed Simple, which is about my time from 35 to 40 when everything really changed for the better. I wrote a book of Christian comedy with Brooklyn Mike called Mind, F-U-C-C, and it's a really interesting book about what makes you go, when you read the Bible. And my last book is a book of wisdom called Lady Day's Pearls of Wisdom. It's about happiness, peace of mind, personal growth, healthy lifestyle, and love and romance. And I'm happy that all my books sell on my website, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play Store, something as a new publisher I'm very proud of. I also joined NAMI in 2008 and became an Inner Own Voice presenter that same year. Then in 2010, NAMI sent me to become a statewide trainer, and I have trained over 250 people on how to give Inner Own Voice presentations. I even trained Zach, which I'm very proud of. In 2009, NAMI sent me to the Dr. Oz show. I guest starred on the warning signs of depression. I spoke about weight gain because at the time I was 215 pounds. But hello, I was so happy to have a speaking part. Then in last year, NAMI sent me to WebMD. I'm the focus of a video called Bipolar, Relapse and Recovery. I spoke about living from the lived experience and from recovery. Remember I told you I'm really into Facebook? Well, success. My high school sweetheart contacted me on Facebook in 2010, and we got married that same year. So this July, we'll be celebrating 10 years of marriage. My hope is to one day have his child, and my dream is to leave you with this bit of information. I choose to believe that there's hope for recovery because it takes a lot of education, fortitude, courage, and discipline to effectively deal with mental illness. And by using those same skills in my personal life, I have been successful. And I'm trying to encourage other people to do the same. And the last thing I would like to say is, after working in corporate America for so long, I realized that it was the most helpful for me and the most proactive thing I could do was to work for myself. So I became a pastor in 2008, and I started my own ministry called Unlimited Help Online Ministry, which is done through my social media, through my website, LadyCharmaineDay.com, through my app, Lady Charmaine Day. And so if you're following me through my social media, my website, or my app, I consider you to be a part of my online ministry, and you're prayed for all the time. And I want to thank you so much for having me come today to speak to you. I believe in helping other people help themselves. Do you have any final thoughts or questions for Zach or myself?
Hi, I just wanted to say I myself have bipolar, and as I was listening, I was just like pressing a button in my head, like enter that. Everything that both of you said was just so inspirational and so encouraging and gave me so much hope that I could also be successful one day. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. And yes, you can be. And I'm glad that what we said to you impacted you. That's what our intention was. And if we can help at least one person, then this has been a worthwhile